Okay, thank you again for attending. My name is Berit Johannesson, and today we're going to have a wonderful session just talking about how to automate your workflow. And my goal here is to inspire you to try to find solutions that work for you and for your team to just start automating some of these tasks. So again, my name is Berit Johannesson. I'm a solution engineer here at iForm Builder, and this training session is going to be wonderful. If there are any questions, please place them in the chat. All right, so our training topics today. First, we're going to start just discussing about this integration and what it actually means, as well as this natural progression that we see users go in when they start automating their workflow. The second topic for today is about our iForm Builder post. This is a wonderful way and an easy way to automate some of your workflow by every time a record's being completed in iForm Builder, it can be posted to another web service. I will also cover some examples of some third-party integration tools. One of them I'm really excited about just because I was playing around with it earlier today, and it's a lot of fun. The fourth topic here is about our third-party element, which is actually a part of your form that you built out. And I'll go through what that process entails as well as what it looks like. And our last one here, and I think I kind of flew by that, but it's just about API. Now, if you're not familiar with API, don't worry about it. We are going to talk about it and just give you a high-level overview of what API is. And all right, so getting started. Why integration is important. Number one is it eliminates that human error. So that person who you're currently paying to go and take the iForm Builder data, export it through Excel, and then type it all up into another system or into a report, you're leaving room for human error. Maybe they misspell something, or that maybe they skip a field, or whatever it may be. There's a human factor, and none of us are perfect, so we're always going to have some kind of error eventually. The second reason on why integration is important is that it automates your workflow. So you're able to create this wonderful workflow into multiple systems, and so that you don't have to worry about, is this data being pushed into our internal system, or is this data being created for a report for maybe your beneficiaries. So you're able to automate that. The third reason why integration is important is that it saves time and money. So that person that you are paying to write up those reports, you can now spend that money and still pay them hopefully, but pay them to do other tasks that maybe are less time consuming. And the fourth reason on why integration is important is that you create a more dynamic visualization of the data that you've collected. And with some of these integration tools like ArcGIS, you can add multiple layers on a map so that you're able to see what other factors may come into play with the data that you've collected. So it's really powerful, all these integration tools. And like I said, today's session is about inspiring you to start some of this integration if you haven't started yet, as well as just make sure that you're aware of some of them. All right, so this is this natural progression that we see a lot of our users go in. That first one is to understand the data. You take the time to export the data, maybe the views and the feeds, maybe even just a PDF. You're looking at it, but then you get a little deeper, and then with the feeds, you start to see that metadata. So you have to understand the data that you're collecting first. From there, you kind of have an overview of what your workflow looks like and what you want it to look like. So maybe it starts with somebody fills out a survey online. Maybe they fill out a survey online. That data then goes into iForm Builder, and then you can use our Smart Table search to have them pre-populate some form fields in your form. And then they complete their survey on their device. From there, the data may go from iForm Builder to your internal system and your internal database. So you're able to define a workflow of all these different steps and all these different tools, but they all come together in one central location. In that step 2, in that natural progression, You're still doing a lot of manual tasks though. So the next step here is step 3 is to use a tool like Zapier, or to use our post assignment to automate that through the records. And you may stop here. That may be sufficient for you. But there are some groups where using our post or using Zapier isn't enough. So that's where they go to that 4th step, where you have a custom web service. This is a custom web services that your developers build, and it's a way to just really identify exactly how your data flows, or what it's flowing, maybe filtering some of the results. Again, some groups will never get to that, but it's knowing that it's there in case you need it as you go on. Okay, so that's a really high level of of the data and of the progression. But now I want you to understand the data exports. So here's a list of all the different options you have for when you want to export your data. So we have our data views as well as our data feeds. The views, that's what you'll get with the basic reporting. That's when you'll see the labels of the form fields, where the data feeds is going to show you the metadata. And I actually have an example here for you so you can see what the difference is. All right, here we have on my left side, this is a data view. So on that top row right here, those are all the labels that I have within my form fields. This first column, column A, that's the ID of the parent record. Now, as you can see over here on my right side, this is my data feed. And this is where I have my metadata, which is really, really powerful. And the metadata is what's being captured in the background of the device. A through M is the metadata, and I know it's kind of hard to see what all is being stored there, and I do have in my slide deck, I do have descriptions of what these are, and I'll show that to you in just a moment. But what I want to point out here is starting in N, you see I have first underscore name, and that's my data column name. So in the form builder, you have your label and your data column name, and here on my left side, this is showing my label, while here I have my feed with the data column name. We have a lot of options for those exports, but when you start automating, you'll be looking a lot more at the data feeds. Okay, and just to be clear, so the metadata, it does capture the username, the timestamp, the latitude, longitude, altitude, speed, and compass direction. Try saying that 5 times fast. Whew. That's a lot of data that's just being captured, and when you're looking at the views, you're not looking at all this. But with the metadata is one way to be able to make sure that the correct user's logged in, and that maybe you have a form field that they have to place in their username. You're able to check that that's actually accurate, as well as making sure that if a user says that they're at a specific location, by looking at the metadata, you can double check that they are actually at that location. So here's just the metadata and all their descriptions. So these are the different fields that I was just talking to you about that go from A until M. You'll notice that you have the created date, created by, created location, and created device ID. And on the opposite side of that, you have the modified date, modified by, modified location, and modified device ID. So when you first open a form, that's that created date. Well, the modified date is when the last time was that you made a modification on that form. So there's 2 times that are being captured on the background. The same thing goes for the modified by, modified location, and modified device type ID. That's that last time that the user is in that form before they have synced it to the cloud. With the location, this is just a way how you can strip down what it's actually saying and then get a more consumable location and timestamp for reading your metadata. Okay, so for the post, what the post actually does, once a record is completed, it delivers that record data to another web service that you've connected to. And this, of course, is automated, so you're able to cut down on that time where you're manually exporting and then putting the data somewhere else. So with this post data, you can find this under form assignment. You'd select a specific form, and then from there, you're able to add multiple endpoints. So this is something that's new with the iForm Builder platform, the ability to have post data that can go to multiple locations. It used to just be one location for this all. So once you've decided that you want to use the post, you can create a new endpoint. You name that endpoint. From there, you place in a URL for that endpoint. Now that endpoint URL can be given to you from these different web services. Some examples I have on the next screen are just like Google spreadsheets, or if you're using a webhook in Zapier, you get a URL for that, as well as another tool that we love, which is WebMerge. And here's, again, an example of just that URL that they give you. And once you place in that URL, you have the option to do an XML or JSON for the post data format. Then you choose the post body content type and an error email. And there's descriptions on all of these on the screen, as you can see, but also you can find a description when you hover over those question marks when you're actually adding a post assignment. But what I'm super excited about is this guaranteed delivery. Prior to our having the ability to have multiple endpoints, we also didn't have the guaranteed delivery. So with this option turned on, when a post request fails to reach your destination, so maybe I'm trying to post this to Zapier and it fails to reach Zapier, then it'll be returned to a queue and it'll try again on the schedule, which is listed here, which is 1 minute, 5 minutes, 30 minutes, 6 hours, and then 24 hours. And then after the 24 hours, if it was unsuccessful to go to that post, then I'll receive a notification email letting me know that it was unsuccessful. And then I know that's either something's going on in Zapier and maybe my endpoint URL has been inactive, or maybe my account closed for some reason. I would know that after I received the notification email. All right, moving forward, we have these great integration, third-party integration tools, and there's thousands of integration tools and web services out there, but these are just some that I played around with personally, and you'll notice this top one is Zapier. This, I can't speak more about how easy it is to use and how much time it can save. I'll be showing you an example shortly on using Zapier, so if you are unfamiliar with it, then I will be going through that with you. The other 4 on here is just Clipfolio, which is a dashboard tool. Another great dashboard tool is Gecko Boards. WebMerge is also listed here, and this is great for reporting. So maybe you decide that you don't want to use the iForm Builder email alert. You're able to customize your report and customize a PDF with WebMerge, and you can put that WebMerge URL. You can use your post URL functionality with WebMerge. So it makes it very, very easy to use. The last 2 here is Zoho. Zoho is a business or enterprise software, so it actually has a couple different tools that you can integrate your data with. Maybe you want to do the reporting, or maybe you want to be the CRM. You can integrate your iForm Builder data with Zoho. And then our last one here is with the ESRI client, and that's ESRI ArcGIS Online. We have a ArcGIS connector, so if that's something that you're interested in, I'll be talking briefly about it later on today, but it is an amazing integration that we have, and it's very simple to use. Now we're still building it out because ArcGIS is so huge. We're still trying to get all the functionality that people want into that. Again, I'll go through that in just a few moments. The last thing at the bottom of this page is the iForm Builder articles on integration ideas. So there's tons of integration ideas. Again, I only mentioned 5 of them here, but if you want some more, you can go to that article in our help desk. All right, so the first one here, and I think by far my favorite, they're all great, but I really, like I said, I really like Zapier. And this is so powerful. It actually has over 300 web services now that it integrates with. And if you're looking to have kind of any CRM tool or a project management, even some kind of social media, you can set that up through Zapier. If you do have a dedicated database, it is a little bit easier to use because then you can use the iForm Builder app in Zapier. If you don't have a dedicated database, you can still use Zapier and iForm Builder, but you'll have to use a webhook. And it's not too hard of a process to do, but you just have to keep that in mind when you start using Zapier, that you have to use the webhook instead of the iForm Builder app. All right, so I'm actually going to go into my Zapier account and show you a webhook that I created earlier today. So this morning, one of our customers was talking to us in chat and asked us if we had any integration with Podio. And I had never heard of Podio before, so I decided I'd research more about it. And it seems like a very easy and fun CRM tool, but also you can use it in multiple ways. And so I thought this was great, and I was like, let me just try to build a Zap in Zapier to integrate iForm Builder data with Podio. That's exactly what I did. I probably spent less than an hour on this, and I created a new account with Podio. I created a workplace or workspace and some tasks here. So I was very simple what I did. But I started in Zapier. I said that I want to make a Zap, and the way that I wanted my Zap to work is I wanted to connect my iForm Builder account, and I wanted to connect a specific form that I had in training. And let me bring that form up to show you what it looked like. Okay, so you should be able to see this iPad now. So in iForm, I created this very, very simple form. Just, was this training helpful? Yes or no. Would you like us to email you with more information? Yes. What was the best way to reach you? Either phone or email. We'll just go phone here. And as you probably saw, I did add some conditions for this form. And then done. So that, like I said, very, very simple form. So I set this up for a record. And what I wanted to do is, once someone completed that record that you just saw, that I wanted a new task to be created in Podio. So once I identified what I wanted that workflow to be, I then had to select an iForm Builder account. So this is the dedicated database that I have. I'm just going to test that link to make sure it's still working. All right, it is still working perfect. I then had to connect my Podio account. And keep in mind, I did create both the workspace and the form in Form Builder and the workspace in Podio. I created that prior to building out this Zap, and that is important to keep in mind when you start using this, just because you want to have everything set up before you build this, or you're going to have to resync and reset up your Zap. All right, so both my accounts have been connected. Step 4 is where I had to identify what profile that was in my dedicated database, as well as what form that it was going to use. I then had to place in my email so that if there was a problem, it would email me and I would know right away. After I did that, I wanted to match up my iForm Builder record to my Podio task. And so the first field that I had, which was required, was this text field. Where you see this orange box, that's a form field that I had in my iForm Builder form. And then I just placed in this text, which was contact about more training opportunities. In my form, as you saw, I allowed the user to either place their phone number or their email address. So here I had to place a location for either of those pieces of information from the user. I then needed a due date. So I wanted to make sure that, after every time a record's been submitted, I have a task and that task will be due the following day. Now, some of these fields were optional, but I needed to identify how I wanted to work within my workflow. The responsible user, this is the responsible user in my Podio account. So I'm the only user in my Podio account because, like I said, I just created that today. So I just identified myself and made me the responsible one. With Podio, you can have more than one organization, so I just had to select that it was Xerion software, and the workspace that I created was the demo workspace. Once you do that, you test your Zap to make sure everything's working the way it's supposed to, and then you can turn it on. So I've already turned this on, I've already completed this task, but now what I'll do is here's this form that we had just filled out. I'm going to sync this form. And once I've seen that I was successful in that sync, I'm going to go check out my Podio account to make sure that it's still there, or make sure that that information came over. So let me refresh my window. And then we see up here, this task was created a few seconds ago. It's in that demo workspace. And if I click on that activity, here's this number that I just placed in there. And I know that it's due the following day, and then I'm done. So see how quick that workflow was, and see how easy it was to set up. That's why I love Zapier. And again, I can't tell you more about how great it is, but or I could try to, but I don't know. If you're not convinced now, I don't know what would convince you. Oh, just so you know, before I go on to the other tools, these are the triggers that we have in iForm Builder, and you can, of course, data can flow bidirectionally using Zapier, so you can either have iForm Builder as a trigger or an action. So maybe if I wanted to with Podio, I could say every time a new contact was added, I want a new record to be added in iForm Builder. So whatever my contact is, I then can have all their contact information in my iForm Builder account, and maybe I could use that for a smart table search. All right, so next up we have WebMerge. This is where I was telling you that you have the ability to really customize your reports and how your reports look. And again, it's automated. So every time a record is completed here, maybe, for example, this is our building inspection. Once I've completed that building inspection report, it's going to go over to WebMerge and create this document, and then this document will be emailed to anybody that I've had that set up to go towards. And I'm going to just show you our WebMerge account as well. So here's my building inspection demo. Gives you that merge history, so how active it's been. And this started out as a blank canvas, and then what I was able to do is I was able to add all this functionality. I'm calling to different elements within my form builder. I'm sorry, I'm calling to different elements that I had placed in my form builder that are a part of the record data and everything. So these are the data column names that I have. You can then bring in photos, and then you can set it to have it email to a specific location. These are just some other settings that you would place in there. Our output that we've selected here is a PDF, but you can go into Microsoft Word, HTML, or an email. You decide here if you want it to be portrait or a landscape. This is where I'm using those data column names to place in those form fields. And this is under the field map. This is where I want it, how I decide how it's being delivered or who it's being delivered to. You have the ability to test and then merge. So this merge is the important part for us as far as using that post URL. So I would copy that merge URL and put that in the post. And then the next time that record was completed, then this workflow would be automated and that report would be created. Before I go on, any questions about the Zapier or WebMerge? All right, from there, then I'll just continue. Next up is the Clipfolio, and like I mentioned earlier, Clipfolio isn't the only dashboard out there. Gecko board is another one that I've used a lot, but there are thousands of them out there. Choose which one works for you, and then you can create this dashboard for your data so that every time a record is completed, then this dashboard would be updated to show the most active results. So maybe if you got a new lead, then that percentage would go up, and you'd see that activity. Depending on how you've set up your board, you may see that activity instantaneously, or if you set it up so that it only runs once a day, then you'd see it after that post ran. Okay, so the next integration that I mentioned to you was the ESRI integration. This is using the ARC connector, and this is built into the iForm Builder platform. If you have a dedicated database, and the way it works is that forms can easily become a feature service in ArcGIS Online or the server. What I love about it is that you can have this integration with the ESRI Collector app. And so when you have your iForm Builder app, you could select a point on the ESRI Collector app, and from there it could launch iForm Builder. You complete some more fields in the iForm Builder form and then go back to the Collector app after you've synced the iForm Builder form, and then you'd see that data in real time. So it's pretty amazing what you could do with the two apps together. This is what it looks like on the Form Builder side of things. So you'd connect your ArcGIS account. From there, you'd be able to import from ArcGIS, or you could select specific forms that have the ArcGIS form field, and then you'd link that to just an ArcGIS map, and when you open up ArcGIS, you'd be able to see any of the forms that you've connected to your account. Here's just more information about the ArcGIS and the ability to call the iForm app from ArcGIS Collector or some of the other apps. We're able to configure the pop-up to call iForm through a URL scheme. The iForm app is open for advanced data capture with subforms, and you're able to submit data and ArcGIS feature services. That feature service is updated. Here's a wonderful video on this, so I'll just launch that for us here. And but what I wanted you to see is that this is showing from the Collector app and going to iForm Builder, and I'm going to go through that. So this is from the Collector app, the ArcGIS Collector app. Now we're in iForm Builder. And you're able to pass that data to and from. And I'll let you finish watching that video on your own time, but again, you're able to pass that data to and from the collector app and iForm, and this is through subforms as well. All right, so next we have our third-party widget, and this is a form field, and this is awesome, what I think is an awesome form field. And if you are a part of our last session, then we did talk about this as well. And if you weren't a part of it, then we have a recording of it if you want to go back. This goes through how you can set up this functionality to occur. So by adding this third-party widget to your form, you're able to use to set it so that it maybe calls a specific user after a specific response. So maybe a user has an emergency and one of your form questions says, do you need to call your supervisor, yes or no? If they select yes, then the supervisor's number will be defaulted, and they'll just select the third-party widget, and from there it will call their supervisor immediately. What some groups have done is they've actually set it up to be a FaceTime, and so maybe they're having a problem and they need their supervisor to really see what's going on. You're able to use FaceTime as a way to show your supervisor that all the activity that's occurring or what's wrong. There are tons of different options here, but here are just 5, which is, make a phone call, send a text message, build a custom app. One of my colleagues, Ben, has built his own custom app, which is just a counter widget, which is pretty neat. So from using the third-party widget, you just tap the third-party widget and it'll launch his counter widget, counter app that he's created. The 4th example, like I mentioned, is FaceTime, and the 5th is that you can open Google Maps. All right, so the last section that we have today, and I'm flying through things, hopefully you're all still with me and awake, we have our custom web service, and this is our API. This is code that is written by a developer, and this is that customized workflow. So maybe you were using Zapier for a while there, but you actually needed to customize some of the options, and Zapier didn't give you the outlet that you wanted. So this is where you could build your own custom web service. And if you don't have a developer in-house, this is something that we can do for you as well. From that, you can redefine your workflow, and this is full task automation. So you may never come into the iForm Builder login again. You may have it all set up so that it always goes to your internal system, and your developer has used the API for the connection of your dedicated database with iForm Builder and with your internal system. And so that every day data will flow back and forth, and no one would ever know unless they were the developer who set that up. So here we have 3 links for you. Just the getting started with the API, how to get started and where to go. We have API code samples as well as the API version 5.1. And okay, so here are the code samples that I wanted to show you. What I think is really helpful is when you are starting to use, or when your developer is starting to use the API, it's great to look at the request options that you have through the API. And if you click on the 5.1 example request, then you're able to download these requests and to use a tool called Postman. Now, I brought up Postman here, and this is just a Chrome extension, and I've imported all of those samples the sample API for the 5.1. So I have all of those here, and I can use this API to set up and actually make some of these calls. Now with this, of course, this is not what your developer will end up using. This is just to do one API call at a time, and it's just to be used to get used to the iForm Builder API and how it works. We will be updating our API. We're currently in that process, and so if you are planning on using the API and you are a developer, then keep in mind, hopefully by the end of January, early February, we'll have those code samples done. We are asking some individuals to start testing the API that we've created in the upcoming month or so. So if you're interested in testing that, let me know, and I'll make some documentation and be in contact with you. So once that's ready, we'd love to have our users test it to make sure that if there are any errors, we're aware of those before we ship it out to everybody and go live. And my last slide here is that we do have a training session coming up early January, and Tony Ruth is giving a sneak peek on the 2015 advancements to the iForm Builder platform. So I think that's going to be an awesome session, and I think you should all attend. If you're wondering on where to sign up, then if you go into our Customer Success Center and go into the iForm Builder Academy, it'll bring up the free iForm Builder training sessions, our schedule, and our recorded sessions. So the first top part is our schedule, and underneath that is all the recording and recorded sessions that we have, and this session will actually be here later on today or early tomorrow. So we also have different support for you. We have implementation support, we have training courses, we have our Kickstart training program, which is given to our dedicated database users. So when you purchase a dedicated database, you do receive 4 hours of the Kickstart training program, which is devoted to you and your team to get you up and running with your project and to make sure if you have any new users coming on that we can train them on the platform as well. My name is Barrett Johannesson, and I'll be spending the next 10 minutes here on this call or on this webinar to answer any questions that you may have. But thank you so much for taking time out of your day to attend, and I really appreciate it, and hopefully I've inspired you to start thinking about integrating your iForm Builder data with other web services and other platforms. Again, I'll be on here for about 10 more minutes, and so feel free to shoot any questions over to me. Thank you again.